This week we get to meet writer and cartoonist Greg Diggs. We learn more about how easy it is to get your projects into stores, art events, and the most Dank-tastic Burger. We got all that and so much more, so stick around and see what else Damon does. DJ Prime, play the music. Welcome to Damon Does Conversations with Creatives. It's your nerd space safe place and where you may find your new fave. I am Damon, father of two, husband of one, and leader of this here Demodcast. My next guest is an aspiring game developer, writer, and cartoonist. Ladies and gentlemen, or wherever you are on the non-binary spectrum, give it up for mega nerd Greg Diggs.
Thank you. I really appreciate you. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you for taking time out to talk to a perfect stranger. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty well today. A little exhausted, but I'm getting there. What about yourself, my man?
I am doing fantastic because I get to do this. I love talking to people such as yourself, no matter how bad my day is, for the most part. This is always a pick-me-up, so thank you.
I appreciate that. And I definitely relate. This definitely got me up there. You know, I had to shake the bones loose a little bit. I was kind of feeling a little drowsy earlier.
We're going to start slow. We're going to have a nice little on-ramp, okay? Before we get into the rest of the conversation, where would you like to be found on the internet?
You can find me on Instagram at GregDiggs_comics. You can find me at Global Comics under Diggs Comics with the X instead of the CS. Or Wattpad under my first and last name, Greg Diggs. I do have a couple of novels there. Either way, if you do find me on Instagram, I do have a couple of links in my bio. That should attach you to everything that I've ever created. Pretty much anything, my sponsors included. So I definitely appreciate all the clicks and whatnot.
So are you ready to have a creative conversation?
Oh, I'm most definitely ready. Let's get it.
When did you know you wanted to get into comics?
I would say around the time I was 24, whenever I had my first son. I realized at a particular point I was trying to read him the same childhood stories that I grew up to, but I didn't remember them being that violent, like Jack and the Beanstalk and Frankenstein and just a few others. So I was like, you know what? Let me just create my own stories where my son doesn't have to worry about existential crisis, like two. That way, it's not just like me having control of the content, but actually creating something that he would want to read. Initially, I wasn't thinking about sharing that with other people, but you know, others picked up on it, and I figured, okay, it could be for myself, my son, and anyone else that enjoys these kind of things. So I definitely realized I had a knack for telling jokes. I have a knack for action stories. It was just a matter of finding, you know, my particular artistic style. And once I nailed it down, it was just pretty much on from there.
Who do you consider some of your bigger influences? Who do you look up to?
Dan Hip, he taught me how to cartoonize just this most complicated structures could just be a few strokes. And I was like, this is amazing. Dave Pilkey, the writer for Captain Underpants and Dog Man, it was the first chapter book I ever actually got through. And that was before I got into manga and such. Think that influenced the goofiness that people often see in the comics that I have. Other than that, most definitely Jack Kirby. I grew up just emulating that style, always balanced making art with writing. So alongside of that, I would have to lump in there Rodney Barnes because he's a very skilled writer. He's done so many different things. He gives excellent advice on Instagram if you're ever looking for any.
So what projects are you working on? What you got coming out in the future?
Right now, I am working on, I would say, an anthology comic called Toon Riot. Still a little under wraps because there's a few things I'd like to change about it, but essentially, I noticed that a lot of my characters, they kind of had the same theme, or of course the same look because of my artistic style. So I wanted to create something that had them under one umbrella, kind of Looney Tune style. That is my current focus outside of a video game. I kind of, not a video game, I'm sorry, a board game that I wound up developing. Still developing the video game. That's taking a little bit of time. It's Numzen. It's really for the nerds, to be honest. I happen to get into math a lot more in old age. I don't want to say old age, but I'm 28. Uh, but it's a little reminiscent of Sudoku, and I would say it has bits and pieces of. And I had the particular game in mind. I just lost it, but mainly reminiscent of Sudoku. You're essentially trying to bust either yourself or another person that you're playing with. With this particular game, it's not out yet, still in the prototype stage, but I am planning on releasing it in the next couple of months.
What do you wish you had known when you first started out?
I think the main thing that I would say is pertinent, not just for myself, but others, is how easy it is to get in the stores. It's simple communication and to honestly just be fearless. Don't be afraid to ask dumb questions because realistically, someone has the answers. I've called museums and all, just like, hey, how do I get my art in there? You know, and some people will laugh you off the phone. Others will actually either give you the information, say they don't have it, or pass the phone on to someone that does. That's how I've been able to at least get into the a few stores locally and expand to more that are outside of my state. Or sometimes you could collaborate with other creators pretty much on the same thing and be like, hey, I got my stuff in stores here. You got your stuff in stores out there. Why don't we just ship our books to each other if you have that much trust in them? And just pretty much network, try to get your stuff in different states. If you really have a tight creators group like that, and I definitely suggest having one, it could be beneficial. I shout out, my homeboys, Michael Driver and Robert Rodriguez, because they've wrote it out with me since the beginning. That was about 3 years ago. They just knew me as just this writer that wanted to draw but didn't believe in himself. And that just grew to, okay, now I just mainly do art, but I need to keep up with the writing because I mainly do art. It can definitely be a special thing. You just have to be able to get outside of your bubble and communicate with people because naturally I'm an introverted person, but there aren't too many introverted businessmen, at least starting out. So if you could get outside of yourself, even if you have to just, put on a persona, like just get out there, communicate. People would love to see you. Just need that exposure.
When in the process of getting into the indie comic game did you realize that community was that important?
Whenever I released, I don't call it my first comic because I only had the writing portion down. And I like to be transparent, which is why I always tell this story, and you can still find this comic to this day. Initially, whenever I started as a writer, I created this, sad to say, a comic with AI art. I didn't know what it was doing at the time as far as scraping other people's art and things of that nature. I just felt like at the time, like, yeah, I did art all my life, but I'm not as talented as, Jack Kirby or anyone that was really up there. So I was like, okay, maybe I could just use this to at least like tell a story, figure out how to tell a story. And it was not satisfying, not the least bit. I think that it was interesting because there were a lot of people that did check out that first comic and I did make a couple issues of it, but it just wasn't my vision. And it, like I said, it was unfulfilling. So at that point, that's when, of course, with the marketing and everything, that's I created this group of creators called the Free Riders Dungeon. And essentially I wanted to encourage others to create, let it be together on your own, but just have a community to where we'd be able to support each other and uplift each other. I think with that, on one end, I wanted to be able to not just write my own stories, but to be able to understand the perspective of other people and why they write theirs. You know, you could definitely get a look of how a person's is through their writing, or at least how their thought process is. But when you actually get to communicate with them, figure out why they create, or at least I don't want to say their ambitions or anything, but it could be a lot more than that. I've seen a lot of people just decide to be solo, like they didn't take the offer and they're not around anymore. And I know it's crushing because you always look at the numbers. You always try to see, oh, who looked at my comment today or what, or my book. And sometimes it's no one, sometimes it's one person. But the thing to keep in mind that I always told everybody else, and that they always would tell me if I was ever in that rut and you need it, is to not focus on the numbers, just focus on the craft. And when you do that, the numbers come eventually. But even at that, this one person decided to take the time out of their day, not to watch Netflix, not to listen to music or whatever. They decided to check you out. Let it be a podcast, a comic, or whatever. And that's beautiful in itself because they didn't have to do that. So after talking to all these different creators and we were able to encourage each other, it was a beautiful thing. But I realized I was catering to more people than I was catering to myself. So I left it to one of my homies to run and then decided to just focus on myself for a little bit and get my art to where I needed it to be. And finally got that.
What's your go-to order at your favorite hometown restaurant?
So here in San Antonio, Texas, on Lock Hill Selma, there's a shop called Gino's. Gino apostrophe S. Over there, they have the Dank-tastic Burger. It's off the chain. I'm telling you, you can't even comprehend the goodness. It's not just a burger, but it's got, like, if you're into bell peppers and things of that nature, got red and green bell peppers, you got melted mozzarella cheese, it's got all sorts of just pickles, lettuce, tomatoes, onions. They had, what was it, a ham, bacon, like anything you could possibly think of. It was like a Scooby-Doo sandwich. And it's dope. You definitely got to check it out. And if you go there and it's your first time being there, they'll comp half your meal. So that's cool. And if you don't like it, they'll give you a full refund and let you keep your meal if you want it. They're that confident how good their food is. And I'm telling you, it's awesome. I slept on it for too long. It's amazing.
What do you have for sides?
Mm. See, over there, the only thing that gets me down is that they don't have fries. I always talk to them about it, try to see what we can do. But outside of that, it's a restaurant, but it's also like a convenience store. It's a little weird at first, but it's very, like whenever you get there, just everyone talks to you, even the cooks and all. But I usually would get sun chips. I like the salsa garden ones just because they're a little spicy. But most of the time, you won't even need, you're not even gonna hit that side. Like by the time you finish that burger, or they have a whole list of stuff. By the time you go through it, you're just, I don't even want to say like overly full of stuff. You're just completely satisfied to where even chips are just too much. You might not even finish that drink, but you might take a nap, a good nap. Just make sure you have nothing to do. That's my only suggestion.
You said you slept on it too long. One, do you remember your reasoning? And two, what was the breaking point?
I always had this excuse of being too busy. And no lie, I really was busy. At the time, I had two jobs, and I was also selling my art on the weekends and trying to communicate with stores in order to get my comic books in there. And so I never, and I'm also, a father. So it was a little hard to find me time at first. It was my brother's wife, of course, my sister-in-law. She tells me that she only went there once, one good time, and it was amazing. I said, if it was amazing, why'd you only go there once? She initially said it was the pricing. I don't think the pricing is that bad, but for my meal, and believe me, I deck it out. I at least spend $20 on it. And I tip as well, because they're awesome people. And they all say thank you when you tip every single person there. It feels good. It's like you want to keep tipping them just to get another thank you. But I would say the breaking point is there was one particular day. I wanted to go to McDonald's, but it was just I couldn't, man. Like, whenever you eat a little too much one week and then you feel a little sick when you think about it. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna just go further down the street. And it was across the street from my apartment, so I really had no excuse. But the smell that came from that building while I was hungry, I was like, you know what? Today is the day. I at least had an hour to myself. I could figure it out. And I did. I did, and ever since then, I would tell you, no matter what I was wearing, this dude that works there, and he was like, "Hey, man, you look good today." And I'm like, "I appreciate that. Like, I need that little confidence boost. Thank you." But he was real cool. He's a cool dude. Y'all see him. Just can't remember his name for the life of me. So I apologize.
What are you curious about?
That is a good one. I would say I'm curious about a lot of things, but what's driving my curiosity right now is there are a few different systems I got to talk about with a few 3D animators. And I've been curious about Maya because I'm hearing a lot about it. And there were a couple of people were telling me in my last show that it's a free software, that it's probably easier to animate than 2D animation, which I found very interesting because I'm trying to get into 2D animation now, but I didn't realize how time consuming it can be, especially if you're by yourself. So it's a process. I have been very curious about working with Maya because especially if I could get some of these characters in a 3D form, um, I think I could make some amazing art, but I just don't know if I have the time for that. So trying to make the time to get new skills is interesting. I think it was Da Vinci, if I'm remembering correctly, that he had so many different interests. He was very curious, but he knew that he couldn't chase them all. So he had to hire people to do it for him. I should learn from that because I do too many things. I juggle a lot. But at the same time, I'm curious about it because I want to go through the process myself. And there are some people that don't necessarily understand that. And to that, I will say, if you're an artist, don't market yourself to other artists. I don't understand that. Like, you have to market yourself to another writer or anyone else that doesn't do art unless they just don't genuinely have the time for it. But that small rant I had to get off. There are too many DMs that I get for that, but I understand.
We talked about games earlier. What kind of games do you like, and what is your dream project? If you had like an Assassin's Creed type budget or a GTA 6 type budget.
So I would say the type of games that I like a little bit old school. So I do like Pac-Man and Galaga. I do like a lot of the Batman games. Also Cyberpunk, because man, those endings are wild. But I would say if I did have a dream game, it would have to be an open world RPG, not have to be an MMORPG because I'd love other people to play it. I'm always in between post-apocalyptic or just a dystopian future. I would definitely say it would have to be that with a wacky, cartoonish character. I always like tragic characters as well, so probably fall into those ones.
What should I ask you that I didn't know enough to ask?
That would have to probably be when my next art event is. I am planning on setting one up in the next 2 or 3 weeks. Might be switching locations. I usually go to this bookstore, Half Price Books by North Star Mall, trying to collaborate with Heroes and Fantasies to see if I can do something over there. But we have to wait until Toon Riot comes out. So realistically, just waiting on me. But it's gonna happen very soon. I can guarantee it. You just gotta be patient.
When you have the date, send it to us, and the rest of us will have it too.
Yes, sir.
Have you done a lot of art shows?
Yes, that's actually a fantastic question. Before I actually got into doing art shows, whenever I barely had like an inkling of confidence, right? I, like I said, I always roll off the cuff, and I decided to jump off the deep end. So I used to go out and meet different voice actors that have been on different anime or television shows and I would make art for them. And I used to invite them on my old podcast. And I met 13 in 1 year and exchanged information with them all, maybe half of them sent information back. The other half were just too busy. I always caught them at a bad time. But literally just a couple months before I started doing like my own art shows, at first that was what was driving me because I felt like, and I always communicated with them that they impacted my life to a point to where it influenced my art or just, what I do today. So I wanted to be able to give something to essentially, give a part of me back, like they gave a part of me to them, right? Or give a part of them to me. I got to meet one guy that I wanted to meet since I was 7 years old. And this was probably 2 months before I, started doing the shows. And I won't say his name because I don't want to slander anybody, but just know that this particular day there were two voice actors that were going to be there. And I knew usually I'd have to do a pitch back to back, like, oh, give you the art first, give you the podcast offer, yada yada. You take a picture, that good stuff. To make a long story short, I waited in line in 103-degree heat for almost 3 hours. I didn't have anywhere to use the restroom. No one was with me to hold my place in line, so I had to just be there. And there was a line bee. It won't make sense now, but whenever there was lines there, the bee would come out. But whenever there wasn't, it's just not there. Didn't understand it. But I go inside. I didn't even want to shake dude's hand because I was so sweaty. And I was like, let me just rub it off real quick. And, I'm telling them, same thing I told you guys. When you just, I was 7, I was into all your stuff. You know what I mean? I made this for you. I just hope it impacts your life like how you impacted mine. And I give him the art. And he looks down at it and frisbees it across the room and was like, what else? Right? So I was like, okay, it's fine. Like I take this rejection from customers, on a daily basis at a regular job. Like it's all right, just get the business part across. So I'm trying to keep that same pep. And I was like, you know what? I was hoping that you get on my pod. As soon as I said pod, before I even got to podcast, he was like, nope, you have to do that through my agency. My agency probably won't even talk to you. If you're small time, yada yada, just it's a wrap. I was like, oh, okay. So, I tried shaking his hand afterward, and I was like, I hope you have a great day. And he looked at it, scoffed, and went on to the next person. And from that particular point, I knew two things. So one, you never idolize man, look for God first. And two, make art for yourself. Don't make it for other people. Because sometimes when you do meet your heroes, they will let you down. And you'll wonder, why am I doing this? And that's what changed my whole trajectory of doing things because I was like, oh, I need to meet the next voice actor, the next one, the next one. Then I realized I need to connect with real people, like people that I actually spend the time or the money to, either invest in my talent or just who I am as a person, you know? And I think that was more fulfilling than meeting a bunch of famous people. I met one guy that couldn't afford to pay his lights but spent the money on my bundle of comics so he could read it to his children at candlelight. And that made me cry. So you could have some very beautiful connections with everyday people. Like it doesn't have to be anyone big. If you're okay with either making those connections or talking to people, but it's a vulnerable place, but it is beautiful.
That's amazing. If you could create a new holiday, what would it commemorate?
It would have to be creators because I feel like a lot of people, especially creators, we struggle with our mental health. Sometimes it can feel like the world's against you, especially if people don't invest time or anything into your comics and you just feel like you're shouting into a void. If anything, like because you're doing it, you deserve the applause. Like no one has to give it to you, but it's the matter of finding value in yourself and what you do. And I think to take a day to realize like how amazing you truly are, it's important. It's nothing to be like say arrogant or conceited about, but I do feel like it's a necessity. Like I recently had gotten to therapy, and that was helped me kind of sort out some of these things that I don't want to say some of these things that I was thinking, but sometimes you do think it as a creator, like is will people really maintain their interest in what I'm doing, or have to drop something immediately because, you know, someone else is gonna take over the life that you could have got. It's nothing even like that. It's no competition. There's money to be made everywhere. It really just depends on why you're doing it, you know? And I think if you could solidify yourself in how amazing that is that you could communicate either through art or words or a podcast, that your interests, your talents, and then be able to shine through all that, like that's amazing. You know what I mean? Even if no one's looking at it, you're amazing. You just have to remember that, and the people will come. Just give it time. That's all.
What day or time of year?
Mm, that is a good one. I would love to say February only because my birthday's in February. But realistically, if I could pick a day, it would have to be in this type of time frame in November. I love this weather. It's usually, at least in Texas, hot during the day. Like we had an 80-degree day today. It was crispy. But usually in the night, it's around the 50s or the 40s. And to have a beautiful day and a nice chilly night, I don't know, it's pretty nice. Pretty dang nice. So I feel like those times where you get to reminisce, you get to create a little bit, or you have the crisp air hit you. I don't know. That's just my season right there.
Why create?
I feel like there has to be some sort of outlet for people in general. Sometimes you can repress a lot of feelings without even realizing it. But whenever you write, whenever you draw, whatever you do, if you can communicate those emotions onto either a piece of paper or a digital surface, wherever, it's so gratifying. And it's something that I wish other people could explore or experience. I know one person, because I used to have a pen pal that fell off, and I hope you're doing okay if you could hear me. They went to art school and everything, and they were so unsatisfied just working in a liquor store. And I was trying to tell them, like, hey, you can still get out there. You can still do all these amazing things. And they were just so self-depreciative. So I feel like if you just got into your realm, into your focus, for me, I call it mind space, to where I all my characters and everything exist, right? That's where my therapist says I lose touch with reality sometimes. But for me, that's where you can either see different characters or experience what they do and be able to write that down. I think if you have some sort of imagination like that, you'll always want to create, you'll always have that drive. But I've created things that people have laughed to, and I thought it was funny. I didn't think anyone else was gonna laugh. I've created things that people have cried to, and like poured out what they were going through at that time and how they related to either that comic or that piece of art. And it's a feeling I can't describe, you know? So to be able to be seen, you know, that someone understands your emotions in some sort of way, or they understand you in a crooked lens, at least you'll be able to kind of like expel some of that emotion or work through it, even if you don't have the resources, either seek help or whatever. And I'm not saying that everybody does. It can just be so amazing to just get that off, you know, and to connect with different people about different things. I've had great conversations with people just based off a simple image. So you never know. Just do it.
Thank you so much, Greg. That was awesome. Thank you very much.
Nah, thank you, man. I really enjoyed this conversation. I really appreciate you for having me here.
Final thoughts. Focus on the craft and make art for yourself. What I mean by focus on the craft, stay in and keep learning about whatever you're creating, whether it's art, whether it's writing, whether it's podcasting, whether it's building cabinets, whatever it is. As you work on your craft and building your skill set, and building your knowledge and building experience, everything else will come with it. You'll have to, branch out. And if you're an artist, you have to be a little more, you're going to have to do some things that are uncomfortable. That's all part of it. But if you keep focus on the craft, that's why you're there in the first place. And the other part is make art for yourself. What's the point of making art if you're not going to have fun doing it and like what you do, or at least have fun doing it? You know what I mean? Your art's not going to be every person's cup of tea, so give it your flavor. But that's just my opinion. Tell me what you think, or what did you get out of it? Drop me an email at demondoes@gmail.com, or if you're on the YouTube, go to the comments section and drop it there. That's how we grow together. Thank you for joining us, whether it's your first time or this time. If you like what you heard, tell the world. Like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube, or go to your favorite podcast app and leave a 5-star review. Either way will help more join the conversation. And until next time, see it, hear it, speak it, live.